You can feel the weight of your own thoughts suffocating you. And yet no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to escape them. The root cause of your pain, your stress, your suffering is not the world around you, but the very thoughts that flood your mind. And what if the key to freedom wasn't in changing the world, but in freeing yourself from the grip of your own thinking? This is not just another self-help theory. It's a way of life, a shift in perspective that could alter everything you've ever known about yourself. In the pages that follow, you'll uncover the profound truth that will allow you to break free from the prison of your mind and step into a life of peace, joy, and fulfillment. Chapter 1. Uncovering the Hidden Source of Pain. There are moments in life when you reach a breaking point, when the weight of everything seems unbearable. The constant anxiety, the never-ending rush of thoughts that spiral out of control. You begin to wonder, why is this happening to me? It's as if every external force has conspired against you, creating a perfect storm of challenges that you can't escape. But what if I told you that this storm isn't just created by the world around you? What if it's a storm inside you, driven by a force that you have yet to understand? Most of us are taught to react to external circumstances. The loss of a job, the breakdown of a relationship, the endless pressures of society. These are the things we believe cause our pain. We look at the world, we see the problems, and we feel them deeply. But there's a hidden truth. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. This idea might sound radical, but it holds the key to unlocking a new way of living, a way of being that isn't dependent on the chaos of the outside world. Suffering, as the Buddha wisely stated, comes not from the painful event itself, but from our reaction to it. The first arrow, as he called it, is the pain of the event, the loss, the betrayal, the failure. But then comes the second arrow, the emotional reaction that we attach to it. The second arrow, our suffering, is something we have the power to control. Imagine this. You're sitting in a quiet room, and a friend unexpectedly walks in, looking upset. They start telling you about the tough day they had at work, the criticism they received, the mistakes they made. As they speak, you can feel their frustration, their anger, and you begin to empathize. You begin to feel those emotions too. But then, a shift happens, a moment of clarity. You realize, this isn't your pain. Their anger, their frustration isn't yours. You don't need to pick it up, hold on to it, or make it yours. You can just listen, empathize, but not carry the burden of their emotions. This is a small but significant realization. We have the power to choose which thoughts we allow to take root in our minds, and it is this power that can end the cycle of suffering that plagues us. But this isn't something I realized overnight. Like many of you, I spent years running in circles, desperately searching for answers, believing that I had to change everything around me to find peace. I threw myself into self-improvement books, diet plans, spiritual practices, anything that promised to help me feel better, but nothing seemed to work. Sure, some things improved. My habits changed, I became more disciplined, I even found temporary moments of peace. But it never lasted. I was stuck in an endless loop of chasing fleeting relief, always waiting for the next big thing to fix my life. It wasn't until I hit rock bottom that everything shifted. I was deep in the trenches of self-doubt, frustration, and despair, convinced that I was broken and that I needed to fix myself. It was in that dark hour, however, that I stumbled upon a realization that would forever change my life. The answer was right in front of me, hidden in plain sight, yet I had never seen it. It wasn't about fixing myself or changing my circumstances. It wasn't about trying harder or being more disciplined. The answer was in understanding the mind, the very thing that had been creating my suffering all along. Our minds are powerful. They shape our perception of reality, create the stories we tell ourselves, and determine how we feel about the world around us. But here's the catch. Most of the time, our minds are working against us. They're constantly churning out thoughts, some useful, many not, and we believe them all to be true. The reality is that we don't have to believe every thought that comes into our heads. We don't have to give them meaning or let them define us. What would happen if we stopped believing everything we thought? What would happen if we could see our thoughts for what they really are? Just fleeting mental constructs, not absolute truths? As I continued on this journey of self-discovery, I realized that my mind was creating the very suffering I was trying to escape. Every time I felt anxious, angry, or frustrated, it was because I had attached myself to a thought. The moment I realized that I could let go of these thoughts, everything began to change. This is the power of non-thinking. It's not about shutting off your mind completely or trying to suppress your thoughts. It's about recognizing the difference between a thought and the act of thinking. Thoughts come and go. They're like clouds passing through the sky. But thinking, the constant rumination, the overanalyzing, the mental chatter, that's where the suffering lies. And here's the truth. We don't need to engage with every thought that comes into our mind. We don't need to believe that every fear, every worry, every doubt is a reflection of reality. Once we learn to detach ourselves from our thoughts, we can begin to experience peace, joy, and fulfillment, regardless of what's happening around us. This is where the real transformation begins. It's not about controlling your thoughts. It's about recognizing that you don't have to engage with them. You don't have to act on every thought that arises. You can let them pass by, and in doing so, you create space for peace, clarity, and love to emerge. There are moments in life when you reach a breaking point, when the weight of everything seems unbearable. The constant anxiety, the never-ending rush of thoughts that spiral out of control. You begin to wonder, why is this happening to me? It's as if every external force has conspired against you, creating a perfect storm of challenges that you can't escape. But what if I told you that this storm isn't just created by the world around you? What if it's a storm inside you, driven by a force that you have yet to understand? Most of us are taught to react to external circumstances. The loss of a job, the breakdown of a relationship, the endless pressures of society. These are the things we believe cause our pain. We look at the world, we see the problems, and we feel them deeply. But there's a hidden truth. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. This idea might sound radical, but it holds the key to unlocking a new way of living, a way of being that isn't dependent on the chaos of the outside world. Suffering, as the Buddha wisely stated, comes not from the painful event itself, but from our reaction to it. The first arrow, as he called it, is the pain of the event, the loss, the betrayal, the failure. But then comes the second arrow, the emotional reaction that we attach to it. The second arrow, our suffering, is something we have the power to control. Imagine this. You're sitting in a quiet room, and a friend unexpectedly walks in, looking upset. They start telling you about the tough day they had at work, the criticism they received, the mistakes they made. As they speak, you can feel their frustration, their anger, and you begin to empathize. You begin to feel those emotions too, but then a shift happens, a moment of clarity. You realize this isn't your pain. Their anger, their frustration, isn't yours. You don't need to pick it up, hold on to it, or make it yours. You can just listen, empathize, but not carry the burden of their emotions. This is a small but significant realization. We have the power to choose which thoughts we allow to take root in our minds, and it is this power that can end the cycle of suffering that plagues us. But this isn't something I realized overnight. Like many of you, I spent years running in circles, desperately searching for answers, believing that I had to change everything around me to find peace. I threw myself into self-improvement books, diet plans, spiritual practices, anything that promised to help me feel better. But nothing seemed to work. Sure, some things improved. My habits changed. I became more disciplined. I even found temporary moments of peace. But it never lasted. I was stuck in an endless loop of chasing fleeting relief, always waiting for the next big thing to fix my life. It wasn't until I hit rock bottom that everything shifted. I was deep in the trenches of self-doubt, frustration, and despair, convinced that I was broken and that I needed to fix myself. It was in that dark hour, however, that I stumbled upon a realization that would forever change my life. The answer was right in front of me, hidden in plain sight, yet I had never seen it. It wasn't about fixing myself or changing my circumstances. It wasn't about trying harder or being more disciplined. The answer was in understanding the mind, the very thing that had been creating my suffering all along. Our minds are powerful. They shape our perception of reality, create the stories we tell ourselves, and determine how we feel about the world around us. But here's the catch. Most of the time, our minds are working against us. They're constantly churning out thoughts, some useful, many not, and we believe them all to be true. The reality is that we don't have to believe every thought that comes into our heads. We don't have to give them meaning or let them define us. What would happen if we stopped believing everything we thought? What would happen if we could see our thoughts for what they really are? Just fleeting mental constructs, not absolute truths. As I continued on this journey of self-discovery, I realized that my mind was creating the very suffering I was trying to escape. Every time I felt anxious, angry, or frustrated, it was because I had attached myself to a thought. The moment I realized that I could let go of these thoughts, everything began to change. This is the power of non-thinking. It's not about shutting off your mind completely or trying to suppress your thoughts. It's about recognizing the difference between a thought and the act of thinking. Thoughts come and go. They're like clouds passing through the sky. But thinking, the constant rumination, the overanalyzing, the mental chatter, that's where the suffering lies. And here's the truth. We don't need to engage with every thought that comes into our mind. We don't need to believe that every fear, every worry, every doubt is a reflection of reality. Once we learn to detach ourselves from our thoughts, we can begin to experience peace, joy, and fulfillment, regardless of what's happening around us. This is where the real transformation begins. It's not about controlling your thoughts. It's about recognizing that you don't have to engage with them. You don't have to act on every thought that arises. You can let them pass by, and in doing so, you create space for peace, clarity, and love to emerge. Chapter 2. The hidden source of our struggles. As you step deeper into this journey, you might wonder, why do we even think in the first place? It seems like a basic question, doesn't it? But when you start peeling back the layers of your own mind, the answer isn't as simple as we might think. Most people walk through life believing their thoughts are absolute truths, reflections of reality. But what if our thoughts are not reality at all? What if they're merely the lens through which we perceive the world, a filter that distorts everything we see? Let me take you back to a moment of reflection. Imagine you're sitting in a crowded coffee shop, sipping your drink. You're surrounded by people, yet you feel completely alone. The hum of conversation, the clinking of cups, and the soft background music don't reach you. All you can hear are your own thoughts. They're loud, they're judgmental, they're swirling in a storm of worry, fear, and doubt. In this moment, you're consumed by the thoughts racing through your mind, thoughts that convince you that you're failing, that you're behind, that you're missing something everyone else has figured out. Now, look around. There's a person sitting across from you, enjoying their coffee. They're calm. They seem at peace, content with the moment. They don't appear to be caught up in the storm of thoughts you're drowning in. How is that possible? You're in the same place, surrounded by the same things. Yet, your experience is drastically different. This, my friend, is the power of thought. You see, the world isn't as we see it. It's as we think it. The way you experience life is shaped by the way your mind interprets it. And here lies the hidden source of all our struggles. We live in a world of thought, not reality. What does that mean? It means that everything you think, feel, or experience is filtered through the lens of your own mind. You're not living in a world of facts, of truths, of certainty. You're living in a world of your thoughts about those facts, those truths. Sydney Banks, the man who discovered the three principles, said, "Thought is not reality. Yet it is through thought that our realities are created." This powerful statement shifts everything. It tells us that reality isn't something fixed. It's malleable, shaped by the thoughts we choose to entertain. If your mind is clouded with fear, doubt, or judgment, your experience of the world will reflect that. If your mind is clear and at peace, your experience will mirror that clarity. But here's the thing. None of it is real, not in the way we think it is. Your thoughts are not facts. Your worries are not truths. They are simply fleeting mental images that come and go, yet we hold on to them, believe them, and let them define how we feel. And therein lies the root of our suffering. When we don't understand how our minds work, we start to believe that our thoughts are reality. We think that our struggles, our pain, our emotions are a reflection of something outside of us. We point to circumstances, our job, our relationships, our finances, and say, "This is the cause of my pain." But the truth is, the pain we feel doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from the way we interpret it. Let's break this down. Take the example of a stressful situation at work. You might find yourself overwhelmed, anxious, or upset. But is the situation itself causing these feelings, or is it your thoughts about the situation? Think about it. Two people can experience the same stressful event, say, a presentation at work. But one person might be terrified, while the other might be calm and even excited. The event is the same, but their experiences are entirely different. Why? Because their thoughts are different. One person might think, "I'm going to fail. I'm not good enough. Everyone is going to judge me." The other person might think, "This is an opportunity to grow. I can handle this. I've prepared for this." The situation hasn't changed, but their thoughts about it have. And that's what creates their emotional experience. What if you could see that your experience of life is simply the result of the thoughts you're entertaining? What if you could learn to recognize that every stressful or painful moment is just a product of your mind's interpretation, not the reality of the situation? This realization is liberating, because when you understand this, you stop blaming the world around you for how you feel. You stop thinking that the circumstances in your life have the power to determine your emotional state. And you start to take control of the only thing you can truly control, your mind. Now, I know this isn't an easy pill to swallow. It wasn't easy for me either. I spent years trying to fix my circumstances, trying to change my life through sheer force of will. But no matter how hard I tried, no matter how many books I read or habits I changed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I was still stuck in the same patterns of thought, still caught in the cycle of anxiety, doubt, and fear. But when I realized that my thoughts were the root cause of my suffering, everything began to change. The world didn't change overnight, but my experience of it did. I stopped looking outside myself for the answers and started looking within. I stopped believing everything I thought and began to observe my thoughts without attaching meaning to them. This shift didn't happen all at once, and it wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. I found peace in the chaos, joy in the midst of struggle, and freedom from the constant mental noise that had kept me trapped for so long. And that, my friend, is the power of understanding how our minds work. When you realize that your thoughts are not reality, you can begin to live a life free from the shackles of mental suffering. You can begin to experience the world as it truly is, clear, open, and full of possibilities. Now, let's go even deeper into this understanding. It's one thing to recognize that your thoughts are not reality, but it's another to fully accept that your perception of reality is shaped by your thinking. This realization changes everything, yet it can feel like a difficult shift to make. After all, we've been taught our whole lives that what we think is what's real. If we think we're failing, then surely we are failing. If we think something is impossible, it must be, right? But here's the profound truth. Your thoughts are not facts. You've been living under the illusion that your thoughts are the reality of your life. And this illusion is what keeps you stuck. What you think about yourself, about others, about the world, doesn't define who you truly are. It's just a reflection of your mind at the moment. And because your mind is constantly changing, so too are your thoughts. This means that no thought is permanent. It's like the weather. It changes from moment to moment. And just as quickly, it passes. Imagine for a moment that you're standing by a river, watching the water flow. You see leaves and branches floating by, sometimes gently, sometimes swiftly, but they're always moving, always changing. Now imagine that the water represents your thoughts, and the leaves and branches represent the fleeting ideas and judgments that come and go in your mind. At any given moment, you may grab onto one of those leaves and say, "This is me. This is my identity." But that's not the truth. That thought, like the leaf, is just passing by. It's not who you are. And yet, so many of us make the mistake of identifying with these passing thoughts. We hold on to them as though they define our existence, but in reality, they're just temporary ripples in the stream of our consciousness. So what happens when we stop identifying with these passing thoughts? What happens when we stop attaching meaning to them and let them float by without trying to grasp at them? The answer is simple, yet profound. We experience freedom. This is where true peace lies, in the space between thoughts. When you stop clinging to your thoughts, when you allow them to pass freely through your mind without attachment, you create space for something much greater than the mind to take over: presence. Presence is that quiet stillness beneath the mental noise. It's that feeling of being fully alive, of being in the moment, of experiencing life without the constant interference of thought. When you're present, you're not worried about the past or the future. You're not consumed by your to-do list or anxieties. You're simply here, in the moment, fully engaged with life as it is. This is where you connect with your true self, the part of you that is beyond the mind, beyond the thoughts. This space of presence is where you can feel true peace, love, and joy. And here's the magic. When you let go of your need to control every thought and every feeling, you naturally enter this state of presence. You don't have to force it. You don't have to try to meditate your way into it. All you have to do is let go of the constant mental chatter and allow yourself to be. But that's easier said than done, right? We live in a world that thrives on constant stimulation. We're bombarded by notifications, tasks, and demands every second of the day. Our minds are trained to be in a state of perpetual motion, never fully resting, always processing, analyzing, and worrying. But here's the catch. None of this is required for you to experience the fullness of life. In fact, the more you engage in this constant mental activity, the more disconnected you become from the true peace and joy that lie within you. So how do you stop thinking? How do you stop being swept away by the currents of your mind and find that inner stillness? It starts with awareness. The first step is recognizing that you are thinking. Most of the time, we don't even realize we're caught in the whirlpool of thought. But when you become aware of it, when you notice the thoughts swirling in your mind, you've already made the first step toward freedom. This awareness is key because it allows you to step back and observe your thoughts without getting swept away by them. Think of your mind as a busy street. At any given moment, there are cars, thoughts, passing by. Most of the time, we're in the cars, driving them, reacting to them. But what if, instead of driving the cars, you stood on the sidewalk and simply watched them go by? What if you allowed each thought to pass through without engaging with it, without attaching meaning to it? This is the shift, becoming the observer of your thoughts rather than identifying with them. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes them. And once you recognize this, you reclaim your power. Now, don't misunderstand me. This doesn't mean that you stop thinking entirely. Thoughts will always come and go. but it's about how you engage with those thoughts. When you let go of the need to react to them, you free yourself from their grip. You stop letting them dictate your emotional state. You begin to experience life as it is, without the filter of judgment or fear. This is where true transformation happens. You stop living in reaction to the world and begin living from a place of consciousness, a place where peace, love, and clarity are always available to you. And the best part? You don't have to work for it. You don't have to strain or force your way into peace. All you need to do is stop reacting to your thoughts and allow the natural state of stillness to emerge. As you continue this journey, you'll notice that life becomes easier. You stop fighting against yourself, and you begin to flow with life. Problems don't seem as overwhelming. Challenges become opportunities. And most importantly, you begin to feel at home in your own skin, at peace with yourself and with the world around you. So let's summarize the essence of this chapter. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are temporary, passing through the stream of your consciousness. And when you stop attaching meaning to them, you create space for peace and clarity to emerge. The key to true freedom is not in controlling your thoughts, but in recognizing that you don't need to engage with every thought that comes your way. Chapter 3. Why we allow our minds to rule us. You've realized by now that the thoughts in your mind are not the reality you experience. But here's an even deeper question to ponder. Why do we allow our minds to dominate us in the first place? Why do we listen to our fears, doubts, and judgments as if they are absolute truths? The answer lies not in the content of the thoughts themselves, but in the very nature of the mind's design. Our minds, after all, are not here to help us thrive. They are designed for one purpose: survival. The mind's primary function is to keep us safe, to alert us of potential dangers, to predict threats, and to ensure that we survive. And while this might have been incredibly useful to our ancestors when they had to face real physical dangers like wild animals or the elements, it's not as helpful in the modern world. Today, we live in a world that's far less about life or death survival and much more about thriving, finding fulfillment, peace, and happiness. Yet our minds continue to act as though we are in constant danger. They react to stress at work, fear of failure, relationship issues, and the judgments of others, as though we are in immediate physical peril. This survival mechanism is what leads to the endless rumination, the obsessive thoughts about the future, and the anxiety we feel about things that haven't even happened yet. Our minds continue to function as if we are always one step away from catastrophe, constantly alert for threats, constantly scanning for danger. Yada. But here's the kicker. None of this is real, not anymore. The danger isn't around us in the way our minds perceive it. It's inside our minds themselves. It's the constant chatter, the incessant questioning, the over-analysis, and the labeling of experiences that causes us the most pain. This mental noise is what keeps us trapped in a cycle of stress, frustration, and dissatisfaction. So why do we let our minds take over? The answer is simple: because we don't realize that it's happening. We don't recognize that we are choosing to engage with our thoughts. We think that we must, that it's our duty to analyze everything, to be vigilant, to make sure we're always prepared. But this constant state of heightened alertness is not the key to happiness or peace. It's the root of our suffering. The mind wants to think. It is its job to think. It's like a machine that's always running, always trying to solve problems, always working to keep you safe. But here's the secret. You don't need to listen to it. You don't have to engage with every thought that arises. You don't have to follow the endless stream of analysis, self-doubt, and fear. The moment you realize that you can let go of this cycle, you free yourself from the constant mental noise that keeps you trapped. But here's the challenge. Our culture has conditioned us to believe that thinking is necessary for success, for survival, for happiness. We've been taught to always figure things out, to plan ahead, to anticipate every possible outcome. The very act of thinking ahead has become a reflex, something we don't even question. And yet, thinking too much only creates more problems. It clouds our judgment, exacerbates our fears, and fills us with doubt. It takes us away from the peace and clarity that's always available to us in the present moment. So why do we continue to engage in this endless mental activity? It's because we don't know how to stop. We don't know how to create space between us and our thoughts. We don't realize that the thoughts are not who we are. The mind is not the enemy. The mind is simply doing its job. But we are not our minds. We are not our thoughts. We are the awareness that observes them. Think of your mind as a radio station. Your thoughts are like the songs or broadcasts playing on that station. The radio station is constantly transmitting, but you don't have to listen to every song that comes on. If you don't like the song, you can change the station. You can tune into something different. Similarly, when you don't like the thoughts that are running through your mind, you can choose to tune out the noise. You can create space by not engaging with the thoughts, not judging them, and not letting them dictate your emotional state. But how do we do this in a world that constantly encourages mental busyness, where every second is filled with distraction, planning, and analysis? The answer is simple, though not always easy: awareness. The first step to freedom is simply becoming aware of what's happening in your mind. The next time you find yourself overwhelmed by thoughts, pause. Take a breath. Notice what's going on in your mind. Are you worrying about the future? Are you reliving past events? Are you analyzing every possible scenario? In that moment, realize that you don't have to engage with these thoughts. You can choose to step back and just observe them without reacting. This is the key to breaking free from the tyranny of the mind. Awareness allows you to create the space you need to let go of the mental chatter. It lets you see that thoughts are just that, thoughts. They are not facts. They are not your reality. And the moment you stop engaging with them, they lose their power. The mind is constantly producing thoughts, but we don't have to follow them. We can create space by becoming aware, by stepping back from the stream of consciousness, and by simply observing. When you stop believing that every thought is true, you stop identifying with the mental noise, and in that space, peace, clarity, and joy naturally emerge. This isn't about shutting off your mind or silencing your thoughts. It's about recognizing that you don't have to identify with them. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness observing them. And the moment you remember this, you regain control of your mind instead of the other way around. As we continue to explore the relationship between you and your mind, let's consider something essential. The mind is not inherently bad. It's simply doing what it was designed to do, help you survive. But the problem arises when we mistake the mind's survival mechanisms for the entirety of who we are. We assume that the mind's constant chatter and overanalysis are necessary for success or happiness. This couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the very act of constantly thinking can prevent you from experiencing true success, peace, and happiness. The mind has a way of focusing on problems, on what's wrong, on what could go wrong, and on what's missing. This mental loop keeps you stuck in a cycle of striving, yearning, and dissatisfaction. The more you think about how to fix your life, the more you reinforce the belief that something is broken and needs fixing. Think about it. How often do you find yourself caught in a loop of, if only? If only I had more money. If only I were smarter. If only my relationship was better. This if only mindset traps you in the future, never allowing you to experience the present moment fully. And here's the truth. You can't solve problems by staying stuck in a state of constant thinking. You can't access clarity, peace, or true creativity by staying trapped in your head. This is where we encounter one of the most powerful concepts in the journey to freedom: non-thinking. Non-thinking doesn't mean being thoughtless or passive. It means stepping back from the constant mental chatter and allowing your mind to settle, creating the space for new insights, creativity, and clarity to emerge naturally. When you stop thinking and let the mind rest, you open the door to something deeper than thought: wisdom. The mind, in its frantic search for solutions, overlooks one of the most profound truths of human existence. All the answers you seek are already inside you. The constant pursuit of answers outside yourself only perpetuates the illusion that you are incomplete, that you are lacking something. But when you stop thinking, when you let go of the need to constantly solve problems, you tap into the wisdom that resides in the present moment. Non-thinking is where you stop chasing external solutions and start trusting the deeper intelligence within you. It's where you allow answers to arise spontaneously, without effort, from a place of stillness. You stop forcing your way through life and start flowing with it. It's the art of letting go, of surrendering to the present moment, knowing that you don't have to think your way through every challenge. But here's the challenge we face. We are conditioned to believe that thinking is necessary. Our society values intellect, analysis, and logic. We are taught that to be successful, we must always be working, always be planning, always be striving. And while there is a time for action and focus, the constant mental noise we live with isn't helping. It's hindering us. When we stop thinking, we don't stop living. We don't stop planning. We don't stop achieving our goals. In fact, we become more effective, more present, and more aligned with what truly matters. We begin to create from a place of inspiration rather than desperation, from a place of joy rather than stress. So how do you make this shift from constant thinking to non-thinking? It begins with awareness. Becoming aware of your thoughts is the first step toward creating space. The moment you notice that your mind is racing or that you're caught in a cycle of worry, pause. Take a deep breath. Step back and recognize that you are the observer, not the thinker. You are the awareness watching the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. When you observe your thoughts with a sense of detachment, they lose their power. You stop identifying with them and start seeing them as they truly are, temporary, passing, and not reflective of who you really are. This shift in perspective is the key to freeing yourself from the tyranny of your mind. Non-thinking doesn't require you to forcefully stop your thoughts. It simply means allowing them to pass without engagement. When a thought arises, acknowledge it, but don't attach to it. Don't give it meaning. Let it float by like a cloud in the sky. This simple act of detachment creates the space for peace, clarity, and creativity to emerge. It's in this space that you reconnect with your true self. Your true self is not your thoughts, not your fears, not your doubts. Your true self is the awareness behind the thoughts, the stillness beneath the noise. When you connect with this deeper part of yourself, you experience life from a place of peace, joy, and abundance. The more you practice non-thinking, the more you begin to trust this deeper wisdom. You stop relying on the mind's limited perspective and start tuning into the infinite intelligence that is always available to you. This wisdom doesn't come from analysis. It doesn't come from trying to figure things out. It comes from silence, from presence, from being fully connected to the moment. This is the essence of living freely. It's not about getting rid of your thoughts or controlling them. It's about stepping out of the constant cycle of thinking and allowing life to unfold naturally. When you stop forcing things, when you stop trying to think your way through every obstacle, you start experiencing the flow of life as it was meant to be, effortless, abundant, and full of possibilities. Chapter 4. The Power of Letting Go. By now, you've begun to recognize the incredible power of non-thinking. But here's where we encounter an important distinction. Thoughts and thinking are not the same. Thoughts are like visitors that come and go, fleeting and often random. Thinking, on the other hand, is the act of engaging with those thoughts, adding layers of meaning, judgment, and emotion to them. It's the thinking that leads to stress, anxiety, and frustration. And it's through non-thinking that we can begin to truly break free from the suffering that comes with our overactive minds. Let's think about this for a moment. When you're in the middle of an intense emotional reaction, when you're feeling angry, anxious, or upset, what's happening in your mind? chances are there's a flood of thoughts. This isn't fair. I can't handle this. This is going to ruin everything. Those thoughts are what fuel the emotions. They build upon each other, intensifying your experience of pain. But imagine for a second if you could let go of those thoughts. Imagine if, instead of identifying with the thoughts racing through your mind, you simply observed them. What happens when you stop believing in the story your mind is telling you? What happens when you don't give in to the urge to continue thinking about the problem, to ruminate on the negative emotions? Here's the magic. The emotional intensity begins to fade. The mental noise quiets. You create space for peace to emerge, simply by letting go of the need to engage with your thoughts. It's in that space that you can begin to see clearly, to feel your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. But here's the catch. Letting go isn't always easy. We've been conditioned to believe that thinking is necessary, that if we don't constantly analyze, plan, and prepare, we'll miss something important. We think that to be productive, we must be constantly on, constantly busy, constantly engaging our minds. But in reality, it's this very busyness that drains our energy, makes us anxious, and keeps us from experiencing the clarity and creativity that's available when we quiet our minds. You don't need to keep pushing, striving, or overthinking. The key to living a fulfilling, peaceful life is not in doing more, but in being more. It's about allowing yourself to be present, to connect with the stillness beneath the noise of your mind. And the way to do that is by letting go. Letting go doesn't mean being passive or doing nothing. It means releasing your grip on the constant mental chatter. It means recognizing that you don't have to solve every problem in your head before taking action. It means trusting that you already have the answers inside you, even if they haven't fully surfaced yet. Letting go also doesn't mean you stop thinking altogether. Thoughts will come. They always will. The point is not to fight them or try to suppress them, but to stop engaging with them. When you stop engaging with your thoughts, you open the door for a deeper, more intuitive wisdom to guide you. Imagine you're holding onto a rope. You're pulling with all your might, thinking that the harder you pull, the closer you'll get to your goal. But as you pull harder, you get more tired, and the rope pulls back with equal force. This is what happens when you try to force the mind to stop thinking. It resists. The more you fight your thoughts, the stronger they become. Now imagine you simply release the rope. You let go of the struggle. What happens? The rope no longer tugs at you. There's no more strain. The moment you let go, everything becomes easier. The same is true with your thoughts. The more you try to control them, the more they control you. But when you release the need to control, the thoughts lose their power. This doesn't mean you'll never experience difficult emotions or situations. Life will continue to present challenges, as it always does. But with the understanding of non-thinking, you begin to see those challenges with a new perspective. You stop getting swept away by your thoughts, and instead, you approach life with a sense of calm and clarity. You know that no matter what happens, you have the ability to navigate through it with peace. You may be wondering, how do I start letting go? The first step is to recognize that you're holding on. The next time you find yourself caught in a whirlwind of thought, stop for a moment and ask yourself, am I holding on to this thought? Am I believing it? The act of questioning your thoughts is the first step toward releasing them. You don't need to get rid of every thought. You just need to stop believing that every thought is true. You don't have to act on every thought that comes to mind. You can simply observe it, let it pass by, and create space for something else to emerge. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. The more you practice letting go of the mental noise, the more you make room for clarity, creativity, and peace. You start to realize that you don't need to struggle to find the answers. The answers are already there. They're inside you, in the space of stillness that comes when you stop thinking. This is the power of non-thinking. This is how you can experience life with greater peace, joy, and ease. When you let go of the need to control, the need to analyze, and the need to figure everything out, you open yourself to the natural flow of life. And in that flow, you begin to live the life you were always meant to live. Now that we've established how letting go of the constant mental noise can bring about peace, let's explore what happens when you begin to truly embrace non-thinking in your life. The most profound transformation occurs when you stop seeing life as something you need to control, solve, or manage. You begin to see that the most fulfilling moments in life aren't the result of planning, stressing, or overthinking. They are the result of presence. When you allow yourself to experience life as it comes, without constant interference from your thoughts, you tap into a deeper source of wisdom and clarity. This clarity isn't intellectual. It isn't something you can figure out with your mind. It's something that arises from within when you stop trying so hard to control and simply let go. Think of the times when you've been fully engaged in something, whether it's playing a sport, working on a creative project, or simply spending time with loved ones. When you are truly in the moment, there is no thinking about the past or the future. There's only the experience. This is the power of non-thinking. It's the state where you are most connected to your true self, to others, and to the universe. In these moments, you don't need to force anything. You don't need to be better or more productive or more successful. You are simply being. And in this being, you tap into a state of flow. Flow is that effortless state where time seems to disappear, where you are fully immersed in what you are doing. In flow, there is no self-consciousness, no judgment, no analysis, only pure presence. But here's the most powerful realization. You don't need to wait for those special moments to feel this way. The beauty of non-thinking is that it's available to you at any time, in any situation. The challenge is not in creating these moments, but in allowing yourself to step out of the constant mental noise and into a state of pure presence. This is the art of letting go. It's the practice of relinquishing control over your thoughts, your judgments, and your expectations. It's the understanding that you don't have to plan every detail of your life to make it meaningful. You don't have to fight against yourself or the world. The more you let go, the more you realize that life has a natural flow to it, and all you need to do is align with it. But how do you align with the flow of life when you've been conditioned to believe that life is something you have to struggle through? The first step is in recognizing that struggle comes from the mind. When your mind is in a state of constant analysis, fear, and judgment, you cannot flow with life. You're too busy trying to control it, too busy thinking about what's next or what's wrong. In contrast, when you let go of this mental control, you release resistance, and when resistance falls away, you begin to experience life as it is, unfolding, ever-changing, and full of infinite possibilities. You no longer need to force things to happen. You simply allow them to happen. So how can you start practicing this in your daily life? The key is to create moments of awareness, moments where you stop everything, take a deep breath, and simply observe. Observe your thoughts, observe your feelings, and observe the world around you. There is no need to judge, analyze, or react. Just be present with what is. When you catch yourself getting caught up in the cycle of overthinking, pause. Take a deep breath. Release the tension in your body. Let go of the need to control the situation. In that moment, you are no longer trapped in the thought cycle. You are free. You are present. And it is in this space of presence that miracles happen. This is when new ideas emerge effortlessly. This is when solutions to problems appear out of nowhere. This is when you find that deep sense of peace and fulfillment you've been searching for. When you stop thinking, you stop blocking the natural flow of wisdom and insight that's always available to you. The more you practice letting go of the mental noise, the more you realize that everything you need is already within you. The answers you seek, the peace you desire, and the joy you crave, it's all there, waiting for you to access it. The only thing standing in your way is the illusion that your thoughts are real, that they define you, and that you need them to survive. As you practice non-thinking, you'll begin to notice a shift in your life. You'll find that things no longer feel so difficult. Challenges won't seem as overwhelming. You'll be more at peace with yourself and the world around you. And most importantly, you'll feel more connected to your true self, beyond the thoughts, beyond the judgments, beyond the worries. You'll be able to experience life as it was meant to be experienced, with peace, joy, and presence. So what does it mean to truly live in non-thinking? It means letting go of the belief that your thoughts define you. It means allowing yourself to be fully present in the moment, without judgment or analysis. It means trusting that the answers you need will come to you naturally, without the need to force them. It means creating space for the wisdom, creativity, and love that already exists within you to flow freely. This is the path to true freedom. It's not about controlling your thoughts or fighting against them. It's about letting go of the need to control anything at all, and allowing life to unfold as it will. In that space, you will find peace, joy, and fulfillment in every moment. Chapter 5. The Myth of Positive Thinking. We've explored the power of non-thinking, but there's a lingering question that many of us face on this journey. If we can only feel what we are thinking, doesn't that mean we need to think positively to feel good? After all, we've been told time and time again that positive thinking is the key to success, happiness, and peace. We're encouraged to think happy thoughts, to visualize success, to constantly focus on the bright side. But what if this isn't the answer? What if, in our attempt to think positively, we're just adding another layer of mental noise to our minds? This question takes us deeper into the understanding of how our minds work, and it challenges the conventional wisdom that has been drilled into us for years. The truth might surprise you. Positive thinking isn't the key to peace. In fact, positive thinking often ends up being just another form of thinking, another layer of effort that blocks us from the stillness and clarity that comes with non-thinking. Let's look at it from a different angle. Think about a time when you were struggling, whether it was with work, relationships, or life in general. How did you try to feel better? You might have forced yourself to think positively, told yourself to stay positive, or tried to focus on things that made you feel happy. But did it work? Did thinking positively immediately bring you the peace you were seeking? In most cases, it doesn't. Positive thinking often feels like a mental gymnastics routine where you're trying to push yourself into a state of joy or calm, despite your mind being clouded with doubt, fear, or stress. You may temporarily feel better, but the mental effort involved in trying to think positively doesn't resolve the underlying issue. It's still just thinking, just another form of mental activity. The truth is, trying to control your thoughts and force yourself into a positive mindset is just another trap. The more you focus on trying to think positively, the more you stay in your head. You're still engaged in the cycle of thought, just with a different flavor. Instead of battling negative thoughts, you're now battling your own mind's resistance to focusing on the good stuff. So, what's the alternative? The alternative is recognizing that the key to feeling better is not in forcing yourself to think positively, but in letting go of the need to think at all. It's not about thinking positively. It's about releasing the mental effort altogether and allowing yourself to experience life as it is, without judgment, without analysis, and without the constant need to control your thoughts. The moment you stop thinking, you allow space for natural, effortless feelings of peace, love, and joy to emerge. These emotions aren't the result of forcing yourself to be positive. They come from the stillness of the mind, the same stillness we've been talking about. And when the mind is still, the natural state of being is happiness, contentment, and peace. Think about a child. A child doesn't need to think positively to feel joy. A child doesn't need to tell themselves, "I'm going to have a good day," to experience happiness. They simply are happy. They feel joy because they are present in the moment. Without the mental clutter that adults often carry, children don't overthink. They don't dwell on what happened in the past or worry about the future. They experience life fully in the present, and that's why they are so effortlessly joyful. This is the secret. True joy, true peace, and true happiness come from being present, not from thinking positively, but from allowing your thoughts to settle so that you can experience life from a place of calm awareness. The more you practice letting go of the need to think, the more you will notice that happiness arises naturally, without effort. But what about the negative emotions that still arise from time to time? After all, we are human. Negative emotions like fear, anxiety, and anger are part of the human experience. The key here is not to suppress or ignore these emotions, but to allow them to come and go without attaching meaning to them. Just like positive emotions, negative emotions are temporary. They come and go. They don't define you. And the more you let them pass without engaging with them, the less power they have over you. Here's an example. Imagine you're feeling anxious about an upcoming event. The anxiety might be strong at first, but the more you try to suppress it, the stronger it becomes. The more you think about it, the more it feeds on itself. But if you simply acknowledge the anxiety and allow it to be there, without trying to change it, control it, or make it go away, it will start to fade. It doesn't need your mental engagement to stay. It only needs your attention to pass. This is the power of non-thinking. You don't need to force positive thoughts or try to avoid negative ones. You simply need to let go of your attachment to them. When you stop engaging with your thoughts, you stop reinforcing the emotional reactions that arise from them. And in that space, the natural peace and clarity emerge. The goal, then, is not to try to control your thoughts or emotions, but to release the control. The more you let go of your mental engagement, the more you'll experience life as it truly is, peaceful, joyful, and free of mental clutter. So instead of striving for positive thinking, focus on non-thinking. Instead of forcing yourself to feel better by thinking positive thoughts, allow the thoughts to pass and make room for the natural emotions that arise from stillness. This shift is the key to breaking free from the cycle of mental struggle and finding true peace. Now that we've explored why positive thinking often leads to more mental effort and distraction, let's look at how we can transcend this cycle and find a deeper form of peace that doesn't rely on forcing our minds into a particular state. The answer lies in recognizing that we don't need to do anything to feel better. For years, I too believed that the key to happiness was through positive thinking. I spent countless hours reading books, listening to motivational speakers, and repeating mantras like, "I am worthy" or "I am capable." On the surface, it worked. For a brief moment, I felt better, more confident, more hopeful. But as soon as the affirmation faded, the old thoughts crept back in. The negative emotions resurfaced, and the cycle started again. It was exhausting. That's when it clicked. The problem wasn't the thoughts themselves. It was my attachment to them. Positive thinking didn't work because it was still thinking. It was still engaging with the mind. It wasn't until I stopped trying to control my thoughts and allowed them to come and go without attachment that I began to experience true peace. True peace doesn't come from trying to change your thoughts. It comes from letting go of the need to change anything at all. When you realize that your thoughts are just temporary visitors, fleeting and transient, you can stop fighting against them. You can allow them to be there without getting caught up in them. This is the practice of non-resistance. It's not about denying or ignoring negative thoughts and emotions, but about accepting them without judgment. When you accept whatever is happening in your mind and in your life, you create space for something deeper. You free yourself from the struggle of trying to control, fix, or change things. Here's an example. Think about a time when you were stuck in a negative emotional state. Maybe you were angry, sad, or frustrated. You probably spent a lot of energy trying to change the way you felt, trying to force yourself to think positively or snap out of it. And how well did that work? In my own experience, the more I tried to push away negative emotions, the more they stuck around. It was only when I stopped fighting against them and allowed myself to feel them fully, without judgment, that they lost their grip on me. Negative emotions are not something to fear or avoid. They're part of the human experience, and when you stop resisting them, they no longer have the power to control you. This doesn't mean that you should become complacent in negative emotions or let them run wild. It means recognizing that emotions, like thoughts, come and go. They don't define you. And when you stop engaging with them, they naturally lose their intensity. When you stop resisting the flow of your emotions and thoughts, you open yourself up to a deeper sense of inner peace. Now, let's go a step further. The idea that positive thinking is the key to peace is rooted in the belief that your thoughts have ultimate control over your emotions and your experience. But in reality, it's not your thoughts that create your reality. It's your beliefs about your thoughts. Your beliefs shape your perceptions, your emotional responses, and your actions. And here's the important part. You can change your beliefs. The moment you stop believing that your thoughts define you, you open up the possibility for transformation. Think about a thought that usually triggers a negative emotional response. Maybe it's a belief about failure, a fear of not being good enough, or a worry about the future. The moment you believe that thought is true, you activate the corresponding emotions: fear, anxiety, sadness. But what happens when you stop believing the thought? What happens when you recognize that the thought is not a reflection of reality, but just a passing idea? The moment you stop identifying with the thought, you disempower it. You stop giving it the energy it needs to trigger your emotional response. You stop reacting to life through the lens of your beliefs and start seeing life as it truly is, without judgment, without fear, without the need to control. The shift here is profound. It's not about trying to change your thoughts or force them to be positive. It's about shifting your perspective on who you are in relation to your thoughts. You're not your thoughts. You're the awareness behind them. And once you realize this, you stop identifying with them, and the power they once held over you diminishes. The next time you find yourself caught in a negative thought, ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is it a reflection of reality? Or is it just a story your mind is telling you? When you begin to question your thoughts, you start to free yourself from their grip. You begin to see them for what they are, temporary, fleeting, and not reflective of who you truly are. And this is the key to living without the constant need for positive thinking. You don't need to control your thoughts or force yourself into a positive mindset. You simply need to recognize that your thoughts don't define you. They are just passing clouds in the sky of your mind. And once you stop attaching meaning to them, you allow the natural peace, clarity, and joy that are always within you to emerge. So what's the takeaway from all of this? The myth of positive thinking is that it's the thoughts themselves that create our experience. In truth, it's our relationship with our thoughts that shapes our experience. When we stop identifying with every thought, stop trying to change them, and stop attaching meaning to them, we free ourselves from the mental noise that keeps us trapped. The key to lasting peace, joy, and fulfillment lies not in forcing positive thoughts, but in releasing the need to control your thoughts at all. When you let go of the struggle, you allow the natural wisdom of your mind to emerge, and in that wisdom, you find the peace and clarity that has always been available to you. Chapter 6. The Mind and Its Power to Shape Reality. We've talked about how thoughts are not reality, how letting go of our attachment to them brings peace, and how positive thinking often becomes just another layer of mental noise. Now let's dive into something even deeper: how our thoughts shape the reality we experience. This is the most profound part of the puzzle, and it unlocks the potential for true freedom. Everything you experience in life, every relationship, every success or failure, every emotion, every circumstance is a reflection of the thoughts you hold about it. The mind has the ability to create a perceived reality, and because most of us don't realize that we are the ones generating our perceptions, we think that reality is something fixed, something solid, something outside of us. But here's the truth. Reality is not as fixed as it seems. Let's consider a simple example. Imagine two people facing a challenging situation, say, a difficult conversation with a boss at work. One person might experience intense anxiety, fear, and stress about the conversation. They might worry about being judged, criticized, or even losing their job. The other person might approach the same situation with calm, curiosity, and even excitement, seeing it as an opportunity for growth. The situation is the same. The conversation is the same. But their experience of it is radically different. Why? Because each person's thoughts about the situation are different. One person's mind is generating a fearful, anxious narrative about the conversation, while the other person's mind is generating a more positive, open narrative. The situation itself doesn't change. What changes is the way they perceive it. And this is the key. The mind is always at work, shaping our reality based on the thoughts we hold. This is why it's so important to recognize that our experience of life is subjective. We're not living in an objective world where things happen to us in a fixed, predetermined way. We are constantly interpreting and reinterpreting the world through the lens of our thoughts. When we understand this, we see that we have the power to shift our perception and, in doing so, transform our experience of life. But here's the catch. Most of us aren't aware of how our minds are shaping our reality. We're caught in an endless loop of thought, belief, and perception, and we think that the way we see the world is the way it is. We believe that our fears, doubts, and worries are true reflections of reality. But when we start to see that our thoughts are the only thing that create our perception, we begin to realize that we have the power to change it. So how do we shift our perception of reality? It starts with awareness. The next time you find yourself reacting to a situation, whether it's an argument with a partner, a stressful work deadline, or an unexpected setback, pause for a moment. Step back. Ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? What story is my mind telling me about this situation? This is the first step to gaining control over how your mind shapes your reality. Once you become aware of the thoughts you're holding, you can start to question them. Are they true? Are they helpful? Are they based on fear or assumptions? And if they're not serving you, you can choose to let them go and create a new narrative. You can shift your perception of the situation and, in turn, shift your emotional experience of it. Let's dive deeper. Imagine you're facing a major life decision. Let's say you're considering a career change. If you let your mind run wild, you might spiral into thoughts of doubt, fear, and insecurity. What if I fail? What if I don't find something better? What will people think of me? These thoughts create a reality in which you feel stuck, anxious, and unsure. But what if, instead of letting the mind take the lead, you consciously chose to shift your perception? What if you started to see the career change as an exciting opportunity, as a chance for growth and personal development? What if you viewed the unknown as a blank canvas, full of potential and possibility? The situation hasn't changed, but your experience of it has transformed completely. This is the power of perception. When you recognize that your experience of reality is shaped by your thoughts, you begin to see that you have the power to change your experience by changing your thoughts. You stop being a passive observer of life and start becoming an active creator of your reality. Here's a powerful exercise to help you get started. The next time you find yourself in a difficult situation, practice this simple shift. First, notice the thoughts that are running through your mind. Are they negative, fearful, or limiting? Acknowledge them, but don't get caught up in them. Then consciously shift your focus. Look for something positive in the situation. Look for a lesson, an opportunity, or a silver lining. You don't have to ignore the difficulties, but you can choose to focus on what's working, what's possible, and what's within your control. This simple shift in perception can have a profound impact on how you experience life. It's not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing a new way to see things, a new way to respond to challenges, and a new way to create your reality. As you begin to practice this shift, you'll start to notice that your life becomes less about reaction and more about creation. Instead of being at the mercy of your thoughts, you start to master your thoughts. Instead of being overwhelmed by the challenges of life, you start to see them as opportunities for growth. And in this process, you begin to feel more empowered, more at peace, and more in control of your life. The next time you find yourself in a difficult situation, remember, you are the creator of your reality. The situation itself may not change, but your perception of it will. And that's where the true power lies, in your perception. If we begin to realize that our mind is constantly shaping our experience, then we can also begin to understand the influence of beliefs, those deep-seated assumptions and convictions we carry about ourselves, others, and the world. Our beliefs are not only thoughts we think, but powerful forces that influence how we perceive reality and, ultimately, how we live our lives. Let's break it down. Your beliefs are the lens through which you view the world. They are the filters that shape your interpretation of every event, every relationship, and every challenge. Your beliefs influence how you interpret the words and actions of others, how you see your own abilities, and how you predict your future. For instance, if you hold the belief that the world is a harsh and unforgiving place, that belief will color every situation you encounter. You'll interpret the smallest setback as proof that the world is against you. You'll see rejection, failure, and difficulty as inevitable. But if you hold the belief that the world is abundant, full of opportunities, and generally supportive, you'll interpret setbacks as learning experiences and look for opportunities in every situation. This shows us that it's not the situation itself that determines our experience, but our beliefs about the situation. And that means we have the power to change our reality, not by changing the world around us, but by changing the beliefs that shape how we view the world. It's also important to recognize that beliefs are not facts. They are simply thoughts we have repeated so many times that they become ingrained in our minds. Think about a belief you hold about yourself. Maybe it's something like, "I'm not good enough," "I'll never be successful," or "I can't handle this." These beliefs are based on past experiences or perceptions, but they are not the truth of who you are. They are merely thoughts that have been repeated over and over again until they've become deeply ingrained in your mind. What happens when you start questioning those beliefs? What if you asked yourself, is this belief really true? Is this the reality I want to create for myself? This is where the power of awareness comes in. When you begin to question the beliefs that shape your experience, you take away their power. You can begin to shift your mindset to replace limiting beliefs with ones that empower you. But shifting your beliefs is not an overnight process. It requires practice, self-reflection, and, most importantly, the willingness to step outside of your comfort zone. When you begin to challenge the beliefs that have been holding you back, it can feel uncomfortable. It's like stepping into unknown territory. But remember, the discomfort you feel is just the mind adjusting to new ways of thinking, new beliefs that align more with your true potential. Here's a powerful exercise to help you start shifting your beliefs. Pick one limiting belief you've held about yourself or the world. It could be something like, "I'm not good enough," "I'll never be successful," or "the world is against me." Once you've identified this belief, ask yourself, is this belief really true? Where did this belief come from? How has this belief affected my life so far? What would happen if I let go of this belief? Then start looking for evidence to challenge this belief. For example, if your belief is, "I'm not good enough," ask yourself, have there been times when I've succeeded? Have there been moments when others have recognized my worth? The more you begin to question your old beliefs and seek evidence for new, empowering beliefs, the more you'll start to see the world in a different light. As you shift your beliefs, you'll notice that your experience of life begins to change. You'll start to see opportunities where there were once obstacles. You'll approach challenges with a new perspective, recognizing them as chances for growth rather than threats to your well-being. And as your beliefs change, so too will your reality. This is the power of perception. The most important thing to understand is that reality is not something fixed or external. It's a constantly evolving experience that is shaped by the thoughts and beliefs we hold. When you begin to recognize that your thoughts and beliefs are shaping your reality, you gain access to the most powerful tool for transformation: your mind. Your mind is not just a passive receiver of the world around you. It is a powerful creative force, constantly interpreting and giving meaning to every experience you have. When you begin to realize this, you can start to take control of how you interpret your life. Instead of reacting to life, you start creating life. Instead of being a passive observer of events, you become an active participant in shaping your experience. But how do we keep our minds aligned with this new understanding? How do we cultivate a mindset that supports our growth and transformation? The answer is in daily practice. Start small. Each day, take time to reflect on the thoughts and beliefs you are holding. Are they empowering or limiting? Are they aligned with the person you want to become? Or are they holding you back? In those moments of reflection, choose to let go of the limiting beliefs and replace them with thoughts that support your growth, your potential, and your purpose. It's also important to practice mindfulness, being aware of your thoughts without judgment. As you become more mindful of your thoughts, you begin to realize that not all thoughts are worth following. Not all thoughts are true, and not all thoughts serve you. When you can step back from your thoughts and observe them with curiosity, you stop reacting to them automatically. Instead, you choose which thoughts you engage with and which you let go of. Over time, this practice becomes a powerful tool for transforming your life. You start to see reality not as something fixed, but as something you have the power to shape with your mind. When you align your thoughts, beliefs, and actions with the truth of who you are, you begin to experience life in a way that is peaceful, fulfilling, and abundant. So, how does this all come together? What's the final takeaway? Your mind is not the enemy. It's the greatest tool you have for creating the life you desire. By becoming aware of how your mind shapes your reality, you begin to understand that you are not a passive victim of life's circumstances. You are the creator of your reality. You can choose your thoughts, you can shift your beliefs, and you can transform your experience of the world. The journey through understanding the power of our thoughts and beliefs has been nothing short of transformative. At the core of this journey is the realization that our experience of life is not determined by external circumstances, but by the way our minds interpret and filter those circumstances. The thoughts we entertain, the beliefs we hold, and the narratives we create shape our reality in ways we rarely recognize. As we've explored, true freedom doesn't come from trying to control our thoughts or force ourselves into positive thinking. It comes from letting go, allowing our thoughts to come and go without attaching meaning to them, creating space for peace, clarity, and insight to emerge naturally. When we stop identifying with our thoughts and beliefs, we open ourselves to a deeper truth beyond mental noise. The key to breaking free from self-limiting patterns and living a fulfilling life lies in this understanding. Our minds are not our enemies. They are powerful tools for creating the life we desire. By becoming more aware of the thoughts and beliefs we hold, we gain the ability to reshape our perception of reality and step into a life that is abundant, peaceful, and truly our own. It's not about changing the world around us. It's about changing the way we see the world. When we embrace the power of our minds, we unlock the potential for true transformation, peace, and joy in every moment.